people they love. But often, this task can be more complicated and expensive. That's why New England Public Media has partnered with Free Will to help you complete this important task. In 20 minutes or less, you can write a legal will, protect the people and causes you love, and get peace of mind for the future for free. Go to freewill.com/NEPM to get started.
You're watching New England Public Media, WGBY Springfield.
I'm 𝗕𝘆 𝗬𝗂𝗫, White House correspondent for NPR News, and we're talking the first 100 days. I'll join New England Public Media and the Springfield Public Forum for a virtual conversation on Thursday, May 6th. We'll break down the beginning of the Biden administration and make time for your questions, too. It's all on NEPM. Register for this event at nepm.org, and I'll see you on May 6th.
Coming up, stories we're connecting you with tonight. Reimagining Massachusetts post-pandemic.
There's something drastically wrong in our society and our Commonwealth when you see such disparities, either by income, by race, and by community.
Addressing issues of racial inequity through art and design.
But I think what we're hoping to do is kind of flood the quad, really have lots of signage so that you're a little bit overwhelmed by it.
And some Springfield residents are breathing a sigh of relief as development of a proposed biomass plant suffers a setback.
The days of polluters being rubber stamped in cities like Springfield is over.
Details on those stories and more up next on Connecting Point.
Support for Connecting Point is provided by our contributing viewers.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us for Connecting Point. I'm 𝗬𝗨 𝗬𝗆. If you've been in North Adams recently, you may have seen these billboards near MassMOCA. Therefore, the national Resist COVID Take 6 campaign, which is based on the work of artist 𝗕𝗆𝗄𝗎 and aims to address racial inequities that have existed in the United States during the pandemic. The Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts has decided to take this campaign and adopt it on campus to address broader issues students say they face surrounding race. Connecting Point's Ross Lippman shows us the Do the Work of Anti-Racism campaign and how a design class is bringing its message to life.
The tool or the material?
Inside the press room at MCLA, art professor Melanie Mowinski.
Oh, wait. What do you think of that one?
And sophomore Eloise Baker are trying to find the right letters.
And then what we're going to do is we're going to put some other spacing in between these to spread it out a little bit.
Letters that are the right shape and size and style for a message.
Let me just see what that measurement is going to be.
Mowinski teaches the intermediate design class that is creating signs for a new campaign. It's one they hope will make
This is our paper guide.
an impression. And as they do the work of getting the word out, the goal is for MCLA to do the work of anti-racism.
The name of the campaign is Do the Work of Anti-Racism. But I think what we're hoping to do is kind of flood the quad, really have lots of signage so that you're a little bit overwhelmed by it.
The process behind creating this design.
So what I'm doing right now is I'm just measuring to figure out what this space is.
Requires time, patience, and a lot of attention to detail.
This guide out a little bit to 12 3/4.
Not only when it comes to printing, but also when it comes to listening.
What is it specifically that you're experiencing when you go to these places?
The design class is partnering with the Berkshire Cultural Resource Center and its director, 𝗕𝗁𝗃𝗁, to make sure the campaign is guided by the experiences of students of color through a series of listening sessions.
We're at a particular time where people and institutions are being asked to show what it looks like to be accountable, what it looks like to make change. And so again, I think this was an opportunity for us to model for our students and engage our students in what allyship and being an accomplice is about.
I don't have answers to this because I'm still like, how do I want to be treated as a human being?
The listening sessions provided students like 𝗺𝗁𝗃𝗁 an opportunity to share their experiences on campus In this particular session, one theme that came up often is that these students are tired.
Oh, I'm tired. Well, I'm tired of answering this question. If I'm being honest and transparent, that a lot has been going on.
I think for me, it was hearing how tired our colleagues of color and students of color are of having to explain things, of having to advocate for themselves, of going into a space and not being acknowledged.
And that's where the Do the Work name came from. From those sessions, each student created their own design, ultimately with Eloise's being selected as the final logo.
The reason I went with that is because when we had a conversation with some of the students of color at MCLA, a really common thing that they brought up is how tired they are of having to do all of this work to advocate for themselves. So I wanted to make something that was sort of pushing for white people to do more of that work so that they don't always have to.
The project was inspired by these billboards near MassMOCA. It's a part of the Resist COVID Take 6 campaign aimed at addressing the racial inequities that have existed during the pandemic.
We are actually one of the first rural communities to take on this campaign.
MCLA was part of a group of institutions that paid for these billboards and others to be raised in the area, and has prompted a larger dialogue surrounding race to start on campus.
We see the action where it isn't just folks who are being oppressed speaking out. It is those that see that oppression who may not feel it directly and speaking on their behalf, advocating, but making a change.
Soon, MCLA will be filled with signs and banners asking you to do the work. And for the design class, taking on an issue with real-world stakes makes the work behind the design feel more like a job and less like homework.
It provided an opportunity to explore how we do this in the workforce, how we explore these sorts of issues and address them and resolve them on a daily basis in the things that we do. So if we're a designer, this is how it works.
I think they really felt that this was meaningful and that what we were doing could matter for them and for other people.
Every Friday night, Connecting Point explores the people, places, and ideas that matter most to Western New England. But it doesn't stop there. You can find us online anytime for exclusive features and content, including a digital exclusive this week in honor of National Poetry Month. Vietnam veteran and award-winning poet and fiction writer Doug Anderson of Northampton shares the inspiration for his work, Night Ambush, and reads a selection of the haunting poem for us.
It is so quiet you can hear a safety clicked off all the way on the other side. Things live in my hair. I do not bathe. I have thrown away my underwear. I have forgotten the why of everything. I sense an indifference larger than anything I know.
Don't miss this digital exclusive available online right now at nepm.org/connectingpoint. As more and more people continue to be vaccinated and we begin to move into a post-pandemic world, many are left wondering, what will this new normal look like? State Senator Adam Hinds is chairing a committee titled Reimagining Massachusetts Post-Pandemic Resiliency. The committee will be holding listening tours throughout the region to hear how the pandemic has affected the state's residents and what support is needed. And I spoke with Senator Hinds to learn more.
This is a committee that's essentially saying, what have we learned from the COVID pandemic and its disproportionate impact in terms of health outcomes, in terms of economic outcomes, who was impacted first and longest, and really understanding that there's something drastically wrong in our society and our Commonwealth when you see such disparities, either by income, by race, and by community. And so on the first hand, it's tackling that and saying we need to do better. We need to create more resilience in the structure of our Commonwealth. And then on the other hand, it's looking at the reality that a lot is changing because of COVID, or maybe accelerated because of COVID. And I'm thinking about increased reliance on telemedicine, remote work. We maybe have sectors in our economy changing. And so that has a whole range of implications in terms of what we need to do for workforce training, for digital access, and the like. And so it's really being deliberate to look at where the Commonwealth needs to make investments so that we can build back stronger.
Now, you recently just held your first listening session in the southeast part of that state. What were some things that you learned from that session, and were there any revelations that surprised you?
The digital divide was a big one that came out. We learned that 21% of Massachusetts residents do not have a hardwire internet connection into their house or apartment, and maybe rely on phones or don't have internet access at all. And 97% of those folks are in our downtowns and urban areas. And so what does that say about what we need to do when we're doing more and more remote learning? And so that was a big one that came out. We're also increasingly focusing on childcare and the central role of childcare in ensuring we have an equitable recovery, that folks can participate in a sector where they might be working from home, and also understanding what the care economy, the role it plays. Our childcare providers are often some of our low-wage earners, and that's not a sustainable model for a shift in our workforce that we're anticipating.
I want to go back to the statistic that you mentioned about the digital divide, because it's fascinating that the high percentage is coming from the downtown areas, and living on the western part of the state where we have more rural areas, that's where we see the connectivity issues. Can you speak on the impact of the digital divide for the western part of the state?
You nailed it. That was a real eye opener for me, because I've constantly talked about this digital divide in terms of rural, mostly, and access and getting all of our towns high-speed internet, and that is a concern, and it's still an ongoing process. But what I didn't realize is that even in our downtowns, we have a very serious problem. Right when the pandemic hit, the superintendent of Pittsfield Schools did a survey of parents, and they found that just under 2,000 students did not have access to internet at home. That's a real eye-opener. That'll clearly be one of the proposals coming out of this committee is how do we ensure an affordable access to internet.
Now, aside from the digital divide, what other issues is Western Massachusetts facing as we come out of the pandemic that differs from the concerns that the eastern part of the state is seeing?
We may not know until maybe the end of this calendar year, even into next year, how many employers are actually going into a remote posture, or maybe it's a hybrid where you have to go in 2 times a week. And so we expect that has a real shift in Western Massachusetts in terms of, well, maybe you can live out here. Maybe people can move to Western Mass. It elevates the importance of West-East Rail, that's for sure, because if you can just hop on that train and go to Boston or Worcester and a nearby economic center for that work, then you can live anywhere, and you might as well live in a place where it's affordable and you have a high quality of life. We expect a lot of employers will experiment for some time. Do they see that it works to have a hybrid workplace, or more and more people working remotely, depending on the industry they're in, of course.
Now, many of the inequities that exist within the state have been around far before the beginning of the pandemic. How does the committee plan to address the issues that are raised during these listening sessions?
Interestingly, we realize that data is as critical as anything. Understanding the health data is a big part of getting towards health equity. And so we'll be pushing for the Department of Public Health in those areas. And then I anticipate that by the time we have a few of these listening sessions, and we'll really front load them this spring and the summer, that by the summertime, we'll have a package of essentially probably a law that will say we need to invest more in digital, and here's how we're going to lower costs. We need to do more for our childcare providers and achieving universal or affordable and accessible childcare, and really down the line, we're seeing changes in how our community colleges, the role that they play in workforce training, and it's really there isn't a sector in our economy that isn't being touched right now, and so we're going to roll up our sleeves and identify strategies to prepare ourselves for post-COVID.
Now, beyond this committee, what are some other ways that we can, in fact, ensure that our Commonwealth is indeed resilient post-pandemic?
We're going into the budget, and we have a major federal assistance. And honestly, that's a real opportunity. I would say that these are generational investments that we're looking at in terms of the size, and it's coming at a moment when we're realizing that the foundations of our Commonwealth, and from an equity perspective, are shaky at best. And so this is the moment to really dig into what does that mean for where we're spending that estimated $4.5 billion in direct state funding. And there are other pots of money too, for both health equity and for education and the like. And so this is a moment, and that's an exciting piece here, is that now you can't ignore what we've been through. You can't ignore the implications that it has caused, and therefore let's come up with some serious strategies, either through this committee, through our budgets, and the laws that we're tackling during the rest of this session.
One of Hampden County's most popular walking, hiking, and biking locales may very well be on its way to permanent protection status. This means that if the transaction between West Springfield, the Department of Conservation and Recreation, and Mass Audubon goes through, the land will never be developed on. Connecting Point's Brian Sullivan paid a visit to the 𝗵𝘆 Reservoir last fall to bring us the story.
There's a road in West Springfield that since late March of 2020 has seen such an increase in traffic that signs like these have begun to dot the lawn landscapes up and down the street, hopefully deterring visitors from treating their neighborhood like the local racetrack. The destination is the parking area at 𝗵𝘆 Reservoir, and on any given Saturday or Sunday, bikers and walkers, many with their four-legged friends, can be found taking to the trails that twist and turn through one of the largest swaths of unprotected open space in the Connecticut River Valley. But while the number of visitors may be up above normal lately, folks simply enjoying all that the 𝗵𝘆 landscape has to offer is nothing new for locals.
I grew up really basically across the street from 𝗵𝘆, and so as kids we used to play back here, we used to ride our bikes back here. I mean, that's what really turned me on to all the trails, is just taking it right up. There's a couple trails that lead up right from where I grew up and lead right into here, so our friends were back here all the time.
It's a location rich with history, some dating back to the 1800s, like this old fireplace. This is all that remains of a once exclusive resort where a select few locals were able to escape as a means of getting away from the city. This reservoir, however, represents some of the more recent history. No longer providing water for area residents, the pump station and the slow sand filter beds to its left and right stand vacated and unused. Now it's a starting point for taking the dog for a walk or ripping through the woods on a mountain bike. But since the property no longer falls under the heading of protected water use lands, it becomes vulnerable to development. That is, unless West Springfield were to sell what is called a permanent conservation restriction on the land. That deal is currently in the works with Mass Audubon and the Department of Conservation and Recreation.
All we're selling is really an easement over the land, so we're selling off our rights to ever develop it, basically. We're saying to Audubon and DCR, in exchange for $1 million, we promise never to build on this land, never to sell it off or section it up or cut it away, and we're going to do that with a contract.
In return, the DCR and Mass Audubon will receive the miles of trails and everything else that lives within the property's perimeters: plant, fish, mammal, bird, amphibian, and insect. What happens with the trails, though, regarding additions and subtractions, remains to be seen, and this is a concern for many in the cycling community. But for now, the scenery remains intact. This includes flowing water that cascades over rocks in a downward trajectory. And while during our visit that flow is only a fraction of what it normally is, any waterfall is always a big attraction, especially with me. It may feel a bit removed from the modern world out here, but the truth is we're actually within striking distance of some of the more urbanized areas of Holyoke, Springfield, and West Springfield, as well as a pair of major highways. But within the confines of these 1,500 acres, I'm still more likely to come across a greater number of plant and animal species than I am of human beings. And the plan is to keep it that way in perpetuity. Maintaining that barrier between the urban world and the deep woods, while making sure that all who want to enjoy its splendors are welcome to visit, is a challenge that Mass Audubon and the DCR did not want to pass up.
𝗵𝘆 is the single most important opportunity to mix both of those. Protecting a very large tract of very important land, highly biodiverse land, 1,500 acres of land, in really close proximity to hundreds of thousands of people. That's something we really just don't see. I don't know of another opportunity like it in Massachusetts.
Springfield residents, as well as public health and environmental advocates, are breathing a big sigh of relief in the 12-year battle over a proposed biomass plant in Springfield. The Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection recently revoked a key air permit for the controversial plant that was initially issued nearly 9 years ago. If constructed, the plant would have burned about 1,200 tons of waste wood a day in East Springfield. And among the community leaders who voiced strong opposition to the proposal was City Councilor 𝗕𝗫𝘀 Letterman. Connecting Point's 𝗕𝗫𝗀 sat down with Letterman to get his reaction to the DEP's decision and what it means for the city.
Well, it was certainly welcome news in the city of Springfield to hear that the Department of Environmental Protection had taken that step. This is a concern that has been raised for over a decade here in the city of Springfield by residents, by community organizations, really because of the state of environmental air quality and public health here in the city, and just the feeling that we needed to see more oversight and protection by the state for communities like ours. So the news was welcome news here in the city of Springfield.
And as you mentioned, this battle has been going on for over a decade now. I think final approval for the project was even given back in 2012, if I'm not mistaken. What transpired? What was the determining factor in DEP's revoking the license that originally had been approved for the project?
You know, Ray, I think this is really a story of community action and perseverance. If you look at the state of these types of regulations 10 years ago, they were in a very different place. 10 years ago, with regard to these air permits, there was very little consideration given to the concept of environmental justice. And when I say environmental justice, I'm talking about the fact that for generations, cities like Springfield have been targeted by polluters, and we have really seen, unfortunately, polluters be rubber stamped in our communities for generations, which has led to the very real and very concerning health disparities. But the difference is that in those intervening years, the community has really come together and demanded that more action be taken and more protections be put in place, which has resulted in the environmental justice policy that now exists for state agencies, and also with the passage of the recent Massachusetts climate bill, the solidification of environmental justice considerations for these types of incinerators in Massachusetts law.
I was going to ask you about the opposition that was generated really from the start of this controversial project and how it grew over the years. This was a grassroots opposition effort, was it not, in terms of getting the community involved? And can you talk about the individuals and groups that were involved in the opposition of this plan?
You're absolutely correct. And this campaign that the city of Springfield has seen in the last 10 years really represented an unprecedented grassroots mobilization and an unprecedented collaboration with local, state, and federal officials and regulators. I remember a DEP hearing at Duggan Middle School that was 300 to 400 people coming out to raise their concerns about the potential impact of that incinerator. And really, since then, that movement and that organization of grassroots residents and activists has really continued to grow.
Statistically, I think something like 1 in 5 children in Springfield has asthma problems. In terms of the air quality and what this is going to mean in as far as public health goals, the health of young people in the city, what does this revocation mean in terms of its impact?
One of the primary concerns that's been raised from the beginning was the asthma rate, not just in the city of Springfield, but also in surrounding communities, some of the highest in the Commonwealth. And as a matter of fact, in recent years, or the last several years, we have seen statistically that this metropolitan region, so sort of greater Springfield, has been named the asthma capital of the country. And that is because of not only the asthma rates, but also the number of ER visits that we see associated with asthmatic attacks, which also speaks to access to healthcare resources. And so what has been raised historically is the concern of further degrading air quality in our community. But I think what this message that DEP is sending is one that I have long championed, which is to say that the days of polluters being rubber stamped in cities like Springfield is over. And those days must be over if we're going to continue to improve air quality and health outcomes.
Councilor Lippman, now that the permit has been revoked by the state, what about the future of the property itself in East Springfield? What happens next there on that site?
Well, at this time, certainly, there's always been another operation operating there, a paving company. And then in terms of, this project, certainly, it will remain to be seen. The city council on the local side has raised an appeal with the zoning board in the city of Springfield relative to the status of the building permit for this project. There is obviously the state permitting process, but there's also the local permitting process. And so we'll be before the zoning board representing our concerns in that regard later this month. And also, there continues to be, unfortunately, a movement at the state level to administer clean energy funds for biomass incineration, not necessarily specific to this project, but it is one that I am opposed to and that the city council has passed resolutions against, because we don't want to see increased pollution anywhere in our Commonwealth. And we certainly do not want to see ratepayer dollars that are paid for by the people of Springfield and the Commonwealth. We do not want to see those ratepayer dollars that are meant to increase truly clean and renewable energy sources in the Commonwealth. We don't want to see those sort of inadvertently or inappropriately routed towards biomass incineration anywhere in the Commonwealth. When this first started, this was a proposal actually originally to burn construction and demolition debris in the city of Springfield. And that is now illegal in the city of Springfield to burn construction and demolition debris because of legislation that we passed at the Springfield City Council and because of a statewide moratorium that was put on that. So we know that sometimes the policy lags behind the science, and it's our job to go out there and advocate for those policy changes.
That does it for Connecting Point for April 16th, 2021. Remember, you can always find the stories that you saw tonight, as well as exclusive features, digital-only content, and more online anytime at nepm.org/connectingpoint. And please join us again next Friday night at 6, right here on New England Public Media for more stories of the people, places, and ideas that matter most to Western New England. I'm 𝗕𝗫𝗍𝗫. Be safe and have a good night.
Support for Connecting Point is provided by our contributing viewers.
There's a lot going on around here, and we want to talk about it. We're going to dive into what's happening in your neighborhood with you. I'm Dara Kennedy.
And I'm 𝗫𝗺𝗫𝗄𝗃. Together, we're launching